Federal statutes are laws enacted by the U.S. Congress. After laws are passed by Congress, the text of the laws later get organized and arranged by subject in the United States Code. The United States Code is subdivided into titles and chapters, which are further broken down until we reach an individual statutory section. Let's use 17 U.S.C. Section 107, a federal statute that provides for fair use in copyright law, as our example to illustrate how to retrieve this statutory section on both Westlaw and Lexis. We will then use research tools on both databases to find cases that interpret this statutory section. On Westlaw, to retrieve a particular code section, you can type in the citation to the United States Code in the search bar. Alternatively, you can navigate to the statutory section under Statutes and Court Rules. Make sure to read your particular statutory section in relation to the chapter and title, as well as the surrounding sections. You can do this by looking at the table of contents to see how this statutory section fits into the statutory scheme as a whole. From the table of contents, we see that this is part of Chapter 1, Subject Matter and Scope of Copyright, within Title 17, Copyrights. Other surrounding sections address other limitations on exclusive rights in copyrighted works. Lexis works similarly to Westlaw for retrieving a statutory section. You can retrieve the statutory section by typing the citation into the search bar, or you can navigate to your statutory section via statutory codes, which are listed under Statutes and Legislation on the home page. After you have read your statutory section, expand the table of contents to understand how the specific statutory section fits within the rest of the code. When we look at the United States Code in Lexis or Westlaw, we are actually looking at annotated codes that contain additional features beyond the plain text of the code itself. Annotations are citations to cases and secondary materials that reference the code section. The annotated code on Westlaw is called United States Code Annotated. In an annotated statute on Westlaw, we see both the statutory text itself as well as annotations, including notes of decisions and citing references, in the tabs near the top of the screen. The annotated code on Lexis is called United States Code Service. In an annotated statute on Lexis, we also see both the statutory text itself as well as annotations, including notes to decisions under the Go To link, or citing decisions, which are accessible by clicking on the Shepardized Document link in the right side of the screen. When researching a statutory issue, it is rare that the text of the statute alone will answer your research question. You will most likely need to look for cases interpreting the statute. Using the annotations in an annotated code is one of the best ways to identify relevant cases interpreting a statute. Two strategies for finding cases from statutes are as follows. First, you could use the Notes of Decisions on Westlaw or the Notes to Decisions on Lexis. These tools consist of a selection of cases chosen by the editors at Westlaw or Lexis, depending on what database you're using, that are organized by topic. There is a short summary for each selected case that describes how that case construes an element or aspect of a statute. The second strategy is to use citing references if you're on Westlaw or citing decisions if you're on Lexis. Citing references and citing decisions include all cases that cite to a particular statutory section. We're going to take a look at the notes of decisions for the statutory section to see if we can find citations to any cases that help us interpret one of the factors set out in the statute. The factor that we are researching is the second factor that is listed in the statute, the nature of the copyrighted work. We can skim through the Notes of Decisions topics in the left sidebar. There are various Notes of Decisions topics pertaining to the factor of the nature of the copyrighted work. Let's take a closer look at one of the topics that addresses factual or informational works to see some illustrative cases involving works that are factual and informational rather than fictional in nature. You can see that each of the cases listed here include a quick one-sentence summary to help you quickly determine whether it would be worth a closer read. To see all of the cases that cite this section of the statute, we can use citing references, our second strategy for finding cases that interpret a statutory section. Let's click on the Citing References tab and limit our citing references to cases only. Because there are over 1,000 cases that cite to the statutory section, we can cut down on the number of cases by using some of the filter options. Let's restrict by jurisdiction, and then also search within the results by keyword. Now let's take a look at the same statutory section on Lexis to explore its annotations. Let's first look at the Notes to Decisions, our first research strategy. The Notes to Decisions are selected by Lexis editors, so the topics and selected cases are different than what we saw on Westlaw under Notes of Decisions. There are several Notes to Decisions topics pertaining to the factor of the nature of the copyrighted work. There also is a topic that specifically addresses informational and factual works. Here we see some illustrative cases with one-sentence summaries involving whether copyrighted works are informational or factual in nature. To see all of the cases that cite this section of the statute, use citing decisions, the second strategy for finding cases that interpret a statutory section. To do this, click on the Shepardized Document link on the right side of the screen. Just like we were able to do on Westlaw, we can employ filters to restrict cases to a particular jurisdiction or date range. We can also search within our results by keyword. The key takeaway is that annotated codes on Westlaw and Lexis contain research tools that can help you efficiently find cases that interpret a statutory section.